Hi, I'm Sarah Ferguson, CEO at Ruetd. I started Ruetd to help the wine industry get insights from data. And I've helped clients in different areas, including irrigation, water stress, and land use. And I'm excited to share some pesticide use trends with you today. So I'm going to be giving a high-level overview of 2024 update. I'm going to be taking a step back and looking at pesticide use overall, and then diving into insecticide usage, and then drill down into a couple of product trends. The goal of the presentation is to give highlights from historical usage to gain insights on how growers have responded to pests in the past. And the most interesting and surprising thing that I found when doing this analysis was the response to the European grapevine moth. It was clearly a county-level participation. You can see it in the data, and I'll show it. Haven't seen anything similar to that since. And just a quick update about methodology. All the data that will be shown today comes from the pesticide use reports. It comes from Department of Pesticide Regulation and specific to planted vineyard acreage. Also, when we look at pesticide use overall, I'm using the time frame between September 1st through the end of August to incorporate herbicide usage. So as an update from 2024, there was more pesticide applied compared to 2023. It was about 8%, still below the 5-year average. And really, the main driver was that more mineral oil was used at a much higher rate or much higher amount. The increase accounts for about 68,000 pounds. And mineral oil, as you know, it can be used as a fungicide as well as an insecticide. Because it is applied in concentration and because it's used for a fungicide, it won't be included in the insecticide portion of the talk. But I wanted to note that it did serve as an important aspect of our spray program in terms of plant protection. And just as a follow-up from last year, herbicide application was down by 5% overall compared to last year. These are the top 5 active ingredients that were applied overall in Napa for 2024. And it's pretty similar to last year. In fact, the top 3 have consistently been the top 3 since 2019. And the contact fungicides just moved up about 1 space this year compared to 2023. So I want to take a step back in terms of pesticide overall trends in Napa, especially when we're talking about quantities in the thousands, hundreds of thousands. I want to give some context of how that fits in just to understand the trends. So pesticide use reports have started in 1990 for California. Here shows all active ingredients in terms of pounds of chemicals applied. And you can see that it's reduced by about 80% in the past 30 years. The majority of that comes from sulfur. Sulfur has been an important aspect of our spray program historically and continues to be so. And looking at how insecticides fit in with overall pesticide usage, it really only makes up about 1% in terms of quantity applied. We have sulfur and mineral oil being the main pesticide used. Insecticides is that small amount. And historically, it's been that way as well. Looking at previous years, it has been a smaller footprint in terms of pesticide usage. So diving into insecticides, we'll walk through a timeline. So looking at historically, just want to orient us to what we're looking at. We'll see a map of Napa. It's in relation to a 6 square mile area. The colors and the intensity shown relates to the quantity of insecticides applied. And the scale at the bottom is going to remain consistent throughout the different years, so you can compare not only area, but also vintage to vintage. The total insecticide applied will run along the bottom, And then the top 5 active ingredients per that year are highlighted, and labeled pests are also highlighted. For labeled pests, they fall under the larger groups, and the size of the circle notes the amount of insecticide applied that targets that labeled pest. So if you keep in mind, a lot of products target multiple labeled pests. The idea for that section is just to compare and see if and when different pests are targeted more significantly compared to others.
Could you read the labels and the labeled pests, please?
Oh, sure. So there's thrips, hemiptera, mites, Lepidoptera, and the Homoptera, the mealybugs, hoppers, and scales, soft-bodied insects. So if we jump ahead 10 years, 2005, we had the first fine mealybug appear in Napa in 2002. And what's surprising here is that we're treating, but the products used are broad spectrum, have multiple targeted pests, and you don't see any separation really of what pests are being treated. 2010, we had European grapevine moth appear in October 2009. Here we see a significant change, higher distribution of insecticides used throughout Napa, as well as the products being used are specifically targeting Lepidoptera, and that's standing out from the other pests. European grapevine moth was treated, it was eradicated in 2016, but the additional 2 to 4 years, still we saw the same level of treatment. So 2017, we start to see some leafhoppers. The Virginia creeper, variegated leafhopper, first appeared in Pope Valley 2013. I remember first seeing in 2019, but over that time, they started increasing area. What I want to notice about this slide is that kaolin was used at it's being more a higher usage compared to other insecticides. It had been a part of the toolkit before 2005, but 2017 was the year that it was used most. And it has such a high rate compared to any other insecticides. It's a level of 10 to 50 pounds an acre. So the rate is very large. It makes important impact on total insecticides applied, but the footprint of usage in the valley is very small. This only represents about 3% of acres that is treating with kaolin. Jump to more recent years. What I found surprising here is that the total insecticide usage is decreasing, and that's likely due to kaolin decreasing. And we start to see a higher density of applications in the valley, almost reminiscent of European grapevine moth treatments. But what we don't see is any separation. I was expecting to see some of those labeled pests separate from the others, and we don't see that. I also looked at this in terms of treated acreage to see if that tells a different story, but similar amounts per these larger groups. And one of the reasons is the products that we're using are more broad spectrum, have more labeled products, labeled pests, and so we're not seeing that separation. So just to go into some of the products, we've been talking about active ingredients and chemicals. Now this is more of the products that have been used. They are noted by size in terms of quantity applied in 2024. And they're grouped according to their mode of action for physiological function. If we look at the impact in terms of acres treating with these products, we start to see a little bit different of a story. We still have high spirotetramat Movento usage, still have high neonicotinoids, but now the mating disruption agents are showing up as being treated over more higher acreage. Just breaking the products into different resistance groups. And again, this is noting the quantity applied in 2024. The highest groups that were applied fall under that non-specific. This includes most organic insecticides, bacterial agents, physical disruption, and the mating disruptors. That made up about 60% of insecticides applied. The next largest group fell under the neonicotinoid group, nerve and muscle, and then followed by the growth, where spirotetramat movento falls into. And again, this is size specifying quantity applied. If we look at the impact in terms of acreage using these products, again, it tells that little bit of different story where mating disruption has a higher impact as being treated by more acreage. You see the neonicotinoids and movento. So I like to look at both acreage and quantity. They both tell different parts of the story. And so just to finish the discussion, I want to include some more about acreage using insecticides overall. This shows acres in Napa that applied any of the insecticides. This is non-sulfur, non-oils since 1990. And we see those different time points separating out where we treated for European grapevine moth, treated for vine mealybug, and then it's been steadily increasing since European grapevine moth over the past 10 years. I pulled out the mating disruption. This is also acreage applying or that had used it. You can see also that mating disruption was a very important part of treating European grapevine moth. And for vine mealybug, it was important. It started in about 2008. You'll notice that it's decreasing in acreage for the past 3 years. That may be due to some events that are not in the data, perhaps replanting, but that's something that I noticed and was quite surprised on. Overall, I can't help but compare how we responded to European grapevine moth with how we respond to other pests. And it just brings back the comment from earlier today about how countywide participation is important to consider when we're thinking about strategies moving forward. So with that, thank you for your attention. And if there's time for questions.
Coming.
Hi, I'm just curious. I saw for your mating disruption isomate and checkmate, but was Salata in the 2024 list there?
It was. There was 2 that were not labeled because of just the size, but Salata as well as dispensers were included in that list. Yep.
Okay, I was just surprised to see it decline because I would have thought mating disruption would have increased the last few years.
Are you referring to here?
Mm-hmm.
This good question. So this includes all of them together. I didn't separate them out, but looking at them separately, I think that would be what we saw. This just includes every mating disruption as a total.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other questions? It's hard to look and go down the stairs. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Let me make sure it's good. Much appreciated.